everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show. I am excited to have my sister Doc on today. We're going to be talking about nutrition, now using food as medicine and how to use that to reverse chronic diseases. That's her jam. That's what she loves to talk about. She is out there helping all of you out there who have had these chronic diseases. Your joints are aching, you can't get up out of bed, you huffing and puffing when you're taking two steps down the road. We all know how that is, right? So let's try to reverse all of that with our guest today. Now, before we jump into that, I know some of you guys are like, wait a minute. How can I jump on the show? Hey, have no fear. Just send an email to drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com and we will get you scheduled. Do keep in mind we're booked out 3 months in advance because we got awesome doctors like the one we're about to have on today who is telling us all about the things they're doing inside and outside of clinical medicine. Okay, now if you're unable to get all of today's broadcast, have no fear also. So this wonderful episode will be available on our Your Caring Docs website. That's URCARING.docs.com website. Click podcast, see Dr. Toombs' beautiful face, click it, and then listen here. You'll be able to catch all of that. Alrighty. So don't forget to download, don't forget to share with somebody else who you know needs and will appreciate today's episode. So let's get this party started.
That's
Alrighty, so
right. That's
yeah,
right.
hey, right. All right. So my lovely sister doc today, she is a graduate of the Edward Via Virginia College of Osteopathic Medicine, right? She did her training in family medicine at the University of Cincinnati and Christ Hospital. She also did her training in obesity medicine. So not only did she did family medicine, then she was like, nah, that's not enough. Then she did obesity medicine. Then she was like, nah, that's not enough. Then she went and got plant-based nutrition certification, talking about the one, the only, the host of the Essence of Health podcast. This is Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers.
All right. All right. I'm gonna need to hire you in your one person hype squad.
Why
I
not?
love it.
Why not?
I'm
This
so
is
happy
how
to
we
be here.
do it.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for stopping by. And thank you for all the wisdom you're about to share. Alrighty, we will go, into plant-based medicine and all your love for nutrition. But I want to start at the beginning. So let us know, what made you decide to go into medicine in the first place? What's your story?
Yeah, yeah. And I always like hearing other physician stories too, because we all have such unique stories. Yeah, but my
Absolutely.
personal story is, yeah, I was just always one of those math and science kids, you know. Really,
Mhm.
I just always loved science. I was always the one hype about the science fair at school, you know, to do the
Oh, you know
project.
what? Everybody's like, oh, here we go. Shayla's like,
Right. And I'm like,
yes.
yes, this is my time. Yeah. Right. So and so really, just with that, I always knew I wanted to do something in the
Hmm.
science world. And then, as I went through school, I actually looked into engineering and then more
Hmm.
research-based science. And just really found I didn't like those aspects of it so much. Engineering, I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I don't know about all this drawing and graphing and whatnot. And then when it came to research, and I worked in a research lab, and we had to do these things with mice, and I was like, nope, yeah, nope, I'm
Not gonna
not
be.
cut out to
That's
play
not
with
it.
mice every day.
No.
So this is not it, right? Yeah, so I was like, well, medicine, clinical medicine is where it needs to be. Yeah,
Hmm.
and so really, it led me down that road to want to pursue a career in medicine. And then as I, started applying for medical schools and
Hmm.
looking at schools and learning about, the osteopathic world and concept of how it was more of a holistic focus, that was something that,
Hmm.
was really drawn to me. And
Right.
so just wanting to explore that more, even though, much of what we do is the same, but
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
learning even that additional side of it. So,
I love it. I love it. That's interesting when we talk about when you're younger and you see a profession and you're just like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then you get exposed to it and you're like,
Yep.
I'm not really sure. Which also leads to what we always talk about, the importance of exposure. Like when you
Exactly.
visualize something in your mind and you're actually working in that place, it might not be what you visualize. So
Yeah.
exposing yourself to it and recognizing, can I see myself doing this every day? It's important for you to make those decisions about your
Yeah.
career or any big thing that you want to do in life, right?
Right, it is true. Yeah, yeah, and it's also too, when I see younger people, who are thinking about these different careers and things, I definitely recommend, finding a mentor or somebody that you can shadow,
Yeah.
even for like high school age kids, as they're trying to figure this thing out. Just
Hmm.
yeah, like you said, just to get an idea as to what you may like and not like. It may not be all the glory you thought it was
But
when
you
you're on
thought
the
it
other
was.
side.
Alrighty, so I love it. So now you did your research. You had to weed it stuff out because you
Yeah.
recognize that I'm good at math, but that's not what I want to do. I want to do some clinical medicine, be around people. So now you're in medical school, and there are tons and tons of different specialties out there, but
Yeah.
you chose family medicine. So tell us, what
Mhm.
made you decide to do family medicine?
Yeah, yeah. And so I found really just a love for it. And I'll tell you, so my first clinical rotation as a medical student was actually general surgery.
Oh my
Which,
God.
can be a lot going from the classroom to,
Just
diving into.
straight to the OR, doing
Right,
rounds
exactly.
from
Yep,
5
yep.
a.m.
Yeah, yeah, all of that. Right, right. Yeah. And so, and because our rotations were at a community hospital, there was no competition for like residents and fellows and all. So you were that, first assist there with
Hmm.
the surgeon. And so, the long hours on your feet and retracting for hours on end. And I was like,
Yes.
nope, I can,
Practicing those knots.
yeah. Yeah, right, right, right. And so, yeah, so I knew it was not surgery at that point. But my school too, in that it's in Blacksburg, Virginia, and so more rural Appalachian. So there was a heavy focus too on us learning a lot about primary care. And so
Mhm,
we were required to actually, in addition to traditional general medicine
mhm.
rotations, we also had to do additional rural medicine rotations.
Mm.
And so when I did my rural family medicine, I had already done my basic, kind of urban in the city family medicine, and it
Mhm.
was just a lot of, referring people out. I didn't find it very exciting, really. But when
Mm.
I did my rural family medicine rotation, we were 2 hours away from any hospital. And so
Mhm.
this doc actually saw and did everything. I'll
Everything.
never forget there was a patient who came in and they had chopped part of their finger off.
Mm.
And they came to their family doc,
Mhm.
for this.
With the
Yeah,
finger in a cup, or
right,
was it in a
right,
paper
right.
towel?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think it's paper towel.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah. And just seeing the vast, knowledge that this doc had, and they, throughout the day there, we would see little kids, we would see adults, we would, do
Mhm.
sutures, we would do all of these different things. And I just really enjoyed that. Um,
Mhm.
and just enjoyed being able to treat the whole family, seeing the
Uh,
kids and the parents and the
mhm.
grandparents, as well as just the vast set of skills and knowledge that you would learn in family medicine. And so that's really, what drew me to say, yeah, I want to do this, because it just left, so much that you can do in the scope of family medicine there.
Absolutely. Family medicine.
Yeah.
Like I always say, like family medicine is the specialty from the womb to the tomb. From the womb, you can help anybody. You can help the
Mhm.
pregnant woman. You can help deliver her. And then when you
Yeah.
deliver her, you take care of the baby and mom. And when the
Right.
baby grows up and then mom becomes grandma, you take care of her too. So it's like
Yeah.
intergenerational. And really,
It
as you
really
mentioned,
is.
it's the whole family. It's a great, great, great profession. And shout out to all my family medicine colleagues out there. Alrighty, so now you're doing that. But when did you decide to venture into learning more and say, you know
Mhm.
what? Obesity medicine is something that I want to add to my scope of practice. When did that occur, and what is it that led you to that
Yeah.
particular field, additional field in medicine?
Yeah, yeah. So just, really going back to such that broad scope of family medicine, I
Mhm.
had worked in a number of capacities within that. I was a residency professor. I worked a bit in women's health,
Mhm.
doing that, and then a bit in urgent care, and then, more in community health at a just more private practice that way. And the common theme that I saw was, these preventative health conditions. We
Mhm.
saw all these folks challenged by diabetes and high blood pressure and high cholesterol, having the heart attacks, having the strokes, and we're throwing
Mhm.
all of these medicines at them, and we aren't getting very far, no matter what we're doing, and just figuring
Right.
that side of things out. And then the more I learned, even with my own health, I had suffered with some severe stomach issues. And,
Mhm.
long story short, I found out I was just highly lactose intolerant,
Mhm.
and had to go dairy free for those reasons. And so just doing more reading on
Mhm.
that, I've always been the kind of person, which I'm sure we all are in this profession, where we're just like, I'm going to go, research that and pick
Let
up
me
a book.
go
And
find
so
out.
let me look that up.
Let
Right.
me look that up. Come on,
Right.
you
Right. So
on
just,
and up to
do a
date.
deep dive. Right, within my own health, and then
I
just
see.
seeing all these other things, because a lot of the things in the plant-based world just talk about these chronic preventative
Mhm.
issues. And so that really made me want to tie more of that into place,
Mhm.
and seeing what was coming about with obesity
Mm.
within our community, the African American community. We know that we have higher rates of obesity, as well as these other chronic preventable health conditions, even within my own family. And so I
Mhm.
said, I want to know more about this thing, and seeing more science come out about it, knowing that, it wasn't so much this calories in, calories out message that we had been
Yes.
taught for so long, and
Yes.
seeing more science come about and saying, there are now genetic markers we've identified. There are these, pathways that we've identified.
Mhm.
And so me just really having a thirst for that level of knowledge and wanting to know more to be able to do more to help
Absolutely.
others in this capacity.
I love it. I love it. So now you've added that to your repertoire, obesity medicine, recognizing that there's more to the obesity pandemic than, oh, you're just eating, like we said, calories in. Oh well, break it down to some less calories. Okay, there's a 2,000 caloric intake per day, and then it's like, well, if you put it in 2,000, you want to lose weight, go down to 1,100, and it's
Right.
like, no.
Exactly. Yep.
No,
Yep.
there's
Then you get the
so
person that's like, well, what do I eat? Air? It's like,
exactly rice cakes and water.
yeah.
Like, what is it? But
Yeah.
then, as you mentioned, there's just so much more to obesity, which we're starting to really dig into the science of it, right? Than what we have been taught previously. So just eat less, exercise more, and you'll be fine. And it's just like, well, what about those who are eating less? They're eating to the point that there is now actually it's bordering on starvation because
Right.
they're not really putting in
Mhm.
the necessary nutrients, which we
Right.
know is important for the building block of the body, the
Exactly.
cells and everything. So you delved into that, but then you also added additional things, like you went and got certified in plant-based nutrition. So tell us what led you to that, and how has that impacted now your view on everything, the family medicine, obesity and prevention, and reversing all of these diseases and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So even, as I delve into this thing more with improving my own health, and
Hmm.
with, helping my own condition from this debilitating GI issues that I had developed.
Hmm.
And the more I read and the more I learned, it was, like a light bulb went off, really. It was like, wow, why haven't, we know more about this, and why haven't we done more of this? And
Hmm.
so really I just started with just talking to my patients initially, and I would tell
Hmm.
them, if you, try to eat a bit less meat, let's remove some dairy, and we can, I'm gonna bring you back in 3 months, and then let's see what your diabetes is doing at that point. And I'll never forget, this was maybe about even it's 2023. This is maybe about 8 years ago. I
Hmm.
had saw a male patient, and they had really uncontrolled diabetes. Their A1C was maybe around 11. And they, one of those folks who hadn't seen a doctor in years, and so we
Hmm.
checked the labs, and this is where it was at. And so, I talked to them, and they were really hesitant, because they
Of
hadn't seen the
course.
doctor in all these years of going on meds and insulin and things. And so I just really took that time and talked to them and said, okay, this is what we're going to do, and laid it out. We're going to have you, not you. I know you like steaks and I know you like your ribs, but we're going to put that down. We're
Mm-hmm.
not going to eat those. We're going to, have you eat more of these fruits and vegetables. I want you to eat a lot of dark leafy greens. I want you to start getting some exercise. And so really laid it out for
Just
them.
like a literally a
Yeah.
plan.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. I saw them back. It was almost like 4 months later, and just in that time frame, they had already lowered their A1C to around 8, and it
Wow.
was just, yeah, and it was amazing. Yeah, yeah, to just
Okay,
see them, because
let's
they
pause.
really they
Let's
they
pause for
delve right
effect.
in to do it. Yeah.
Let's pause for effect right here. So the A1C went from 11. And for those who are like, what's an A1C? So, let's explain. Explain to those who are listening who might not know what the hemoglobin A1C is. So we could give them like the
Right.
impact of what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. So your hemoglobin A1C is a measure, and so what it tells us is what your blood sugar is doing within the body. A
Hmm.
level over 7, really a level now over 6.5 is
6.7.
considered to be diabetes, and
Mhm.
controlled diabetes is having that level below 7. A level at 11 is very uncontrolled diabetes, meaning your blood sugars are regularly beyond the 200s, closer to that 250s
Mhm.
range. And so that's, we measure it to screen for diabetes as well as to monitor the control of your diabetes. And
Mhm.
so, having someone to go from where their blood sugars were likely routinely in the 250s down to with a hemoglobin A1C of 8, meaning their blood sugars were more into that higher 150s. They made
Mhm.
a tremendous improvement.
A So how did that person feel when they returned and you
Yeah.
had them come back with this new hemoglobin A1C level? Like, what was that encounter
Right.
like?
And this is why I always remember this patient, because when I tell you, they skipped into the office.
I love it.
Yeah. They were so excited because, they knew they felt better, and they had been
Yes.
monitoring their sugar. So they knew their sugars were better too. And they
Mhm.
felt it, and yeah, he did. He literally skipped into the office. He was so excited to just, tell me what all he's been doing. And I was amazed too, because we tell patients a lot of things to go do, and seldom do they really listen.
Mhm.
But he had, really put it into action, and just seeing that,
The
that proof and
effect.
evidence of what he had done, because it's not like, it was something he could fake or alter.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're not going to be able
Yeah,
to. And for those of you guys listen, no, you will not be able to alter your A1C because it's checking for the last couple of months. So
right.
it's not, oh, well, I'm going to check. I'm going to do really well for my tests this week.
Right,
No.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I know I'm seeing that doctor tomorrow, so I'm not gonna
So
have this donut
I'm not
today.
gonna have this done today. No, we'll be able
Yeah.
to get the levels for the last couple of months. Alrighty, so you're seeing that effect. So is that what started to drive you? Like, wow, look at this
Right.
positive
And so,
effect.
yeah, and so really seeing that, and then finding, well, the more I talked about this thing and the more I helped people and having them see that,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just, really became more intrigued of just really adding this as a central part of the way that I practice.
Mm-hmm.
I had also turned my own lifestyle over to being plant-based anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I had gone from someone who was never an athlete, never would even run a lap around a track, to running marathons and doing triathlon and Ironman level triathlons. Just from really, changing my diet and feeling more energized and feeling and having better health. To be able to power me to be able to do these things. And so that really made me, kind of shout it from the rooftops. My husband always says, "You're like a plant evangelist." Yeah. Yeah.
I
Just seeing
love
all
it. So you start to change into, transition into plant-based in your life, in incorporated it into your life, and then you go from not only that, but not being able to move that much, not running down the street, only running down the block if somebody's chasing you, and
Exactly.
to running marathons.
Yeah, I know, right. It's still surprising. Honestly. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And it's just the feeling energized, feeling better and saying, why not? Like,
Right. Yeah, yeah, because I recall those times when I ate more a traditional diet, and I recall those times of being doubled over in pain with the stomach stuff and just feeling sluggish. And then when I started eating plant-based and not having those things, and just, feeling lighter on my feet, and feeling this level of energy, and feeling good about myself, because one of the other things within the research has shown is that the way we eat also impacts our mental health. And so, I could even see that difference too. And so,
wow.
yeah, it just really fueled me to just want to get out there and do more. I ran my first 5K right after completing residency and having my oldest son. And like I said, I had never been a runner, and I did the Couch to 5K plan, and I ran my first 5K. And from then, I was just off. So, yeah, I'm going to do all the things.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. I want to take a quick minute to give a hello to Dr. Tawana Gilliard, who is here tuning in. Isn't she
Awesome.
amazing, Dr. Gilliard? Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Toombs. All right. So now, you're doing that and you're saying this plant based diet can really go and change and to reverse some of the chronic diseases. We've seen the story with homeboy that came skipping in with this new hemoglobin A1C. So what are some other stories that you've noticed that you can say, listen, this is something that you should look into. And I'm going to be the plant-based evangelist and keep screaming it from the mountaintop. So tell us some additional stories.
Yeah, yeah. And so, even after beyond just, improving my own health, and then having my husband, he went plant-based himself after seeing all that I was able to do, especially after I completed my first triathlon. Because he knew me as
Wait. You
he
told us
knew me,
marathon. You said,
right.
wait,
He
we
he
go
knew
from
me when
marathon to
I wouldn't run around the
triathlon.
block. Yeah. Yeah, so he knew me when I was like, no, I'm not running, what? And so then been doing a triathlon, swimming, biking, and running in the same day.
Ma'am.
Right. And so he was
What?
like, what? He said, so even, setting that example and him seeing that, and then he went plant-based, and he also improved his health.
Mhm.
He was able to reverse some of his health conditions just from changing what he put on his plate. And he felt better. He went on to do triathlon and do Ironman. We actually, have raced together, which was fun too,
So
to
you're
be
doing
able to do that.
Ironmans,
Yeah.
ma'am?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I completed my first full 140.6 mile race in 2019, Ironman, Texas.
She said, "Oh, you were down here in Texas. Next time you come down, you need to let me know. I will be cheering you from the finish line. I'll be at point A. I know, right, Dr. Gillian? She's like, wow, wow, wow. Okay, now here is a thing that I really want to delve into, and I love that you're telling us that you've been doing all of these rigorous activities being plant-based, because I think that that's what really stops a lot of us from thinking that with plant-based nutrition, I'm not going to get enough dense nutrition in order to do these rigorous exercises. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So like what is your diet like to be able to, like, you're running like nobody's business. Not you're biking and you're swimming, you're doing Ironmans. Those are trainings that this is not like I'm gonna get up today and go do an Ironman. It really
Right.
takes like discipline, and there's discipline in not just like the physical activity but the nutritional aspect, because you have to have your body at the tip top shape in order to do that.
Exactly.
Now,
Hmm.
for most people who are thinking about plant-based or I've even started, the biggest question is, where can I get my protein? Or
Yeah.
I'm bored with beans. So
Yeah.
tell us, like, what are some highlights some things that
Right.
ways to get those nutrition in and not be bored so that
Right.
you can do your Ironman too.
Yeah, yeah. And for a lot of people, they do feel like, well, that eating plant-based is, going to be so restrictive. And I'm not
Yes.
going to be able to, eat what I enjoy. I'm going to be like a rabbit and eating salads all the time. And I'm going to be, sluggish and hungry and all of these things. But once you really learn about, the proper ways to eat and those foods that do fuel you, because I always like to encourage people to think as food as fuel
Yes.
for our bodies. And especially if we're eating the proper foods, we actually can fuel our bodies with food.
Absolutely.
What we know about our animal-based products is that, they have markers that increase inflammation within the
Mm-hmm.
body. They have
Mm-hmm.
markers that increase mucus formation within the body, increase fat cells and insulin resistance. And so those foods actually will work against us versus these plant-based foods. And
Mm.
plant-based foods actually have, you know, uh, particles within them that are antioxidants, that are anti-inflammatory, and so they are natural medicines, if you will, to be able to fuel us to be able to do things like endurance sports. And so, when
Absolutely.
the protein question comes. We are not protein deficient. For all of us
Mm-hmm.
in medicine, we learn about all of these rare protein deficiency and malnutrition type of things, but I've never seen it here in America. I've done some mission trips to some other countries.
That's
Yeah,
for
it
real.
is. It's real. But amongst us Americans, really, no matter what you eat, I mean, unless you've got some other issues going on, you're not going to be malnourished. And
Mhm.
so, plants have protein in them, which is, one of the things that a lot of people just don't realize.
Mhm.
And eating plants, you will get a sufficient amount of protein. Tofu, soybeans, and we probably could do an entire other session with you about soybeans because it's gotten such a bad rap. But
Yes, soybeans did get it. There is that estrogen, and now when you trying to demasculinize the man and give him all
yeah,
this
yeah,
estrogen.
and a lot of it, it's just myths. But
Hmm.
yeah, but it's a great source of protein. Beans, like you said, great source of protein. But you can even get protein from oats, from your high fiber foods, quinoa. These are all other really good sources of protein. And so
Wow,
just
it's good to
adding
know.
those things,
Hmm.
yeah, into your diet, you will definitely get a sufficient amount. And then, the other thing that I kind of held to, especially when I was, deep in my Ironman training, was beets. Beets are great ways to reduce inflammation and to help boost blood supply, and oxygen levels within the blood and those things.
Yes.
And so I would have beets multiple times a week, really, just because it helped with that recovery,
Hmm.
to keep you from feeling so sore when you're doing all of these exercises and stuff too. And so, yeah, plants, they are great. It's
They do
definitely fuel medicine.
it. I love those additional sources of proteins in the plants that you're not thinking about because
Hmm.
all you're thinking is the only way that I can get protein is either dairy products
Yep.
or eating meat. But we know that their plants have protein, but
Right.
beans aren't the only plants with proteins.
Right. Exactly. Hmm.
I love
Exactly.
that you talked about beets too, because beets are sweet, and people are thinking, well, I'm diabetic, and if I'm trying to go plant based, maybe beets have sugars in it.
Mhm.
So, but knowing how to incorporate the plant based nutrition and to help it to actually stabilize your sugar versus spiking
Mhm.
it up and
Right.
down is like very important. So it's like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I will tell you, talking about when introducing this to patients, you do a lot of times you'll tell them to start eating fruit and they're like, well, when I ate that apple, my blood sugar spiked up sky high, kind of thing.
absolutely, yes.
But what we know now with the science that is actually the fat that's fueling that insulin resistant and that's making you more insulin resistant to even where natural sugars will tend to spike your blood sugar. But when you transition to more of a whole food plant-based diet, it's naturally very low in fat because you're not eating these animal products. So then that previous insulin resistance that you had it goes away, so that you're able to eat these fruits, especially the good fiber that you get from things like apples, and berries, and they don't spike your sugar. They help to actually stabilize it because you aren't getting these quick spikes of glucose.
Wow.
Yeah.
Uh, wow. No, so it's the fat from the traditional diet
Hmm.
that is causing your reaction to the natural foods that you
Right.
should be incorporating. So these
Hmm.
spikes are not coming, oh, because you shouldn't eat apples. It's because of the other portion of the diet that is already making you insulin resistant. So you eat the apples, which
Right.
you should be incorporating, but the other portion of your diet is making you have a negative effect. So once you
Exactly.
change and incorporate the plant-based portion, you decrease the fat cells, you decrease the insulin resistance. You now have your apple and you're getting a maintained sugar versus a spike.
Versus those spikes. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
interesting. Hello.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is. I will tell you, just, reading and learning more about this, it definitely is. It's mind blowing. And then, seeing the evidence, because
Yes.
the nice thing now is that more of our peer reviewed journals are putting out more things,
Mm-hmm.
about plant-based nutrition and the effects of, adding certain plants, into the diet. For a long time, lobbyists and, the meat and dairy industry get a lot of money, and so it made a lot of the other studies underfunded, but we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing more and more, which is great.
Wow, wow. So, I'm pretty sure that once you started to see this effect, this positive change on you, you were like, you know what? I got to tell people from the mountaintop, like you said, you like your husband called you the plant-based evangelist. So now you started like a podcast and you
Yeah.
started to the coaching programs. Tell us about
Mhm.
those.
Yeah, yeah. So I started Essence of Health Wellness Clinic and Coaching. I opened in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
really to offer more to my patients. I found that, the more I was able to have these discussions, these longer discussions, like I did with that particular patient with diabetes, it took a while. It was definitely not a discussion I could have with him in 5 minutes in our traditional,
Yeah,
healthcare
yeah.
system. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to do more of that. And so I really had to leave the traditional way of practicing, to be able to do that, which is why I opened my own practice. And then over this past year, I've moved more into the health coaching space because I always tell people, yeah, I'm really good at prescribing you medicines and I can write all the prescriptions in the world. But if I can take the time and really teach you these things, I'm going to give you something that's going to be much more sustainable for you for long-term health and wellness. And that's really what I've, I feel more called to, more as my
Yeah.
own mission to do more of that, to really educate people how they can take charge of their own health and make these changes and have sustainable tools in their own personal toolbox to be able to sustain their health and wellness and feel good about themselves and their bodies. And so that's what I've been doing. And then I started the podcast after that, just to do more of my chiming it from the rooftops. Really,
Hello.
for people. Yeah, because the
Yeah.
other thing I found too, being in the plant-based community, if you will, is that there are not a lot of people that look like me,
Mm-hmm.
in the community. And I feel like that too has also been a hindrance. I'm passionate about health disparities in African American and people of color, and how we can help to improve those things. And I think, one part really is just for more of us, who look like us to just to say those things and be more in the limelight, because for a long time, we saw vegan as just more of the skinny white female,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
That was
avatar
what
in
was
terms of that.
portrayed. Yeah.
Right, right, yeah. And so, and it wasn't something that we saw for us, and we, and so just really helping people of color understand how this can make an impact in our health too. And so I've strived to do that too with the podcast.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Alrighty, so now here's the thing. You have like really piqued a lot of people's interest. And they're wondering, okay, so I'm like deep into this like American diet and yeah, I want to switch over, but man, I don't even know where to start. Like,
Yeah.
what is a good place for someone to start so that number one, it becomes a lifestyle and not just a fad? It becomes something
Mhm.
that they can sustain. Like, what are some of the things that you'd recommend to
Mhm.
someone so that they can ease into this lifestyle, because they're going to start to see the benefits, and then once you start seeing
Right.
the benefits, then you're going to be running triathlons too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's right. Let me know.
let you know. Okay, but what's a great place for them to start?
Yeah, yeah. So really when starting, I always tell people to start where they're at and start with what they like. So, it
Mm,
sounds simple, but really,
mhm,
I'll always talk through with the person. Like, for instance, if you like tacos, let's start with
mhm,
that. Well,
mhm,
what do you typically like in your tacos? Well, if it's, chicken or ground beef, that kind of thing, let's try you with some black beans, or let's try you even with some plant-based crumbles. Now, plant-based meat alternatives is a whole different topic.
mhm,
But if that's where you're starting and where you need to start from to get you
mhm.
there, then yeah, let's start with some of those. We can also start with you making meat, if you will, from walnuts. There's some recipes for that.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
I've
that
seen
can give
that for
you
the spaghetti
that.
and meat sauce with the
Yeah.
walnuts, right?
Mhm. Right. Yep.
Oh,
Yep. And it
yeah,
tastes
go
really
ahead.
good. Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
let's start where you're at and try that. See how you feel, because that's one of the other keys too. I always ask people, well, how did you feel when you ate this instead of that? And having
Right.
people make that mental connection with it too, because then that also encourages you to want to do more of that. And
Mhm.
then the other part, I find a lot for people, it's just really rethinking of what their plate has to look like. For a
Ah,
lot of us just growing up, and for so long we're used to that meat and two sides kind of plate, and used to our plate
right,
looking that way. But if we
right.
rethink that and get that vision out of our mind, that a meal has to consist of a meat and two sides, and just think that oh well, my meal can consist of some roasted spinach, some beans, and a cup of brown rice, and that can be a meal. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
To make that your meal. And then the other thing I always recommend people do is really keep it simple. Um, there are some fantastic plant-based chefs out there. I am not one of them. I don't pretend to be a chef at all. So I tell people, keep it simple. Some of my staples that I keep around, I always keep a bag of brown rice. I always keep quinoa on hand. I always keep a big thing of spinach, one of those family size boxes of spinach, and some beans or bean based pasta. Those just staples, because you can just make so many meals. And broccoli, that's my other thing. You can make so
Mm-hmm.
many meals just with those ingredients. They're quick. We're busy. We've got stuff to do. So they're
That's
quick and
right.
easy to prepare. You can buy frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables are great. They are picked at the peak of freshness. They don't have any preservatives added to them, because the freezing process does the preserving.
Mm-hmm.
And you can easily make those frozen vegetables and keep them on hand. So you don't have to, overcomplicate it with some fancy recipe. Yeah, those things are great, to try when you've got time to do
When you
that.
have time.
Yeah, but don't let that, be the thing that stops you, because, oh, I don't, have time to go grab 30 ingredients and put them into a meal. Right. You can do
Yes,
some broccoli and rice and add a little sauce and call it a day, kind of thing. So, yeah.
absolutely. I love it. I mean, you're right. All of the objections are real. The
Yeah.
time, the am I gonna be full? I mean, just look at this little plate right here.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
eat more of it too. That's another thing too. Yeah, so for so long you're used to seeing that typical plate, but nobody is, getting diabetes from too much kale or too many, too many apples, whatever. So just eat more of it. You'll get full.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
We have Dr. Gilliard. She made a great point about encouraging people to embrace the concept of incorporating plant-based diet one meal at a time. Which
Yeah.
is what we just discussed, because people tend to run from it because we have this all or none mentality. Yeah,
Right.
I'm just
Hmm.
saying, like, well, I'm gonna go all in, and then this has
Yeah.
not been anything that you have incorporated in your life. You haven't. This hasn't been a part of your complete daily schedule. Your
Hmm.
palate is still wanting the food that it had from for
Right.
so long, and then you're like, I give up. This is not for me. But as you
Hmm.
said, like if you try to incorporate it a little bit at a time and try to change out and substitute some of the other
Hmm.
things that you do like. And I love
Yeah.
what you said. Start with the food that you like. Like, what's your
Right.
favorite
Hmm.
meal? And then see how we can substitute some parts so you're still
Right.
enjoying
Hmm.
while you're doing that transition. All righty, I love
Yeah.
it. All righty, so now you know we done talked all about you, all about this. We need to know for your self care, what are you doing for self care in order to avoid burnout?
Yeah. So,
Running
uh,
Ironman. I mean, everything.
no, actually, Ironman is not self care. I do not advise it for self care. Oh my goodness, just the training is like another job. Um, but for self care, I do love being outdoors,
Mhm.
really. And so I love hiking. I love camping, even just going for a walk, just being outside in general. I'm really an outdoorsy person. And that's my form of self care. And those times when I don't get to get outdoors, something else I like to do is listen to audiobooks, and really not medically related ones.
Mhm.
I'll go just dive into just something fun. I like a lot of true crime stuff and, things of that topic. And so
Just
I'll just,
release.
right, exactly. I'll take 10 to 15 minutes and just listen to something totally non work related at all. And it just
Mhm.
does it. It helps to just, take my mind, to settle my brain down, and to just my way of self care to relax that way.
I love it. I love it. See, she was like, just 10, 15 minutes. Just
Yeah.
de-stress, settle her mind, and then like
Yep.
then you can go back at it. Alrighty.
Yep.
So now here's one of my favorite questions. If you weren't a doctor, and now I gotta take a bunch of stuff off because you're not a doctor, and you're not doing triathlons, and you're not a plant-based evangelist from the top of the mountaintop. What would you be? Tell us. This is the
Yeah.
imaginative question.
Yeah, honestly, I probably would be a park ranger because,
Oh,
like I
I
said,
love it.
yeah, I love being outdoors. I love a good trail, and I love just spending time camping in the woods with, my tent, and and so I would love to be a park ranger. You might have me go look for a part-time gig.
Look at that. I love it. Well, you'd be out there foraging for the mushrooms that you know that's so
Right.
good and adding it
Yeah.
to your freshly based meal. Love,
Yeah.
love, love
I
it.
love the outdoors.
Alrighty. So now I know there are a lot of people, who've been engaged and listening. They've been, jumping on and off. And I know that they're gonna come back and want to know where can we find you? Where can we find like, all things that are essence of health, all things that's Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers, like where can we find you? Do you have anything coming up? Like I need to
Yeah.
know. So let us know.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome. Yeah, so I can be found at with Essence of Health at eohcoaching.com, and that's
Mhm.
how, folks can learn more about my signature coaching program. I also released just yesterday a
Oh,
standalone video course too. So if folks are just
well,
interested in learning, yeah,
congratulations.
thank you, about these tools that we talked about for sustainable health and wellness. Excuse me, it's a self-paced video course, and so that can also be found on my website there. And then I am on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Essence of Health Wellness Clinic. And then I'm on TikTok at Dr.TW at EOHWC.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So everything, essence of health coaching.com. You'll be able to get all the things that are available from Dr. Tomb Withers. I'm saying Dr. Toomer. You know who Dr. Toomer is. That's my sister,
Yeah.
Dr. So Dr. Shayla Tomb Withers, Essence of Health, about plant-based nutrition and about her wonderful program that she just dropped yesterday
Yeah.
live. You heard it here first. I want to be exclusive. You heard it here
That's right.
first.
That's right. Yeah, because I haven't even announced it on my own podcast. So
There
yes,
we
you did.
go.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. All that
Yeah.
essence of health, wellness, and all the coaching and a self-paced course that you can go and learn about all the different ways how to incorporate plant-based diet into your life and to reverse some of these chronic diseases and to make it a part of your lifestyle versus just a fad or something I heard
Right.
about, or I don't know if that's for me. Go ahead, take a dive into it and see if it is for you.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, what are the benefits? Longer health, more
Exactly.
energy, and sustainable blood sugar, all this stuff. You just
Yeah,
skip it
they are
into,
priceless. Right. You
yeah,
just
you
skip it
skip
into your
it, just
doctor.
give it to your doctor, just like the other
Yeah.
gentleman. I
Mhm.
love it. I love it. I love it. So now I know I'm going to thank you, Dr. Shayla. Is there anything that you'd like to leave in your last minute things before we close out today's wonderful interview?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just gonna leave, a couple of my favorite quotes.
Hmm.
So one of them is "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food."
Hmm.
And then the other one is about an ounce of prevention being a pound of cure. And so just leaving those with your audience because it just really focuses on a lot of what I do. But thank you for having me. This was fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know for those of you guys who are listening and you're like, oh my God, I didn't get all of this great info, have no fear. Just go to ouryourcaringdocs.com and select podcast, and you see Dr. Shayla's beautiful face. Just click listen here and you'll be able to hear the rest of this podcast. And of course, you'll be able to get all of her, all things is Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers on the show notes, right? Now, for those of you guys who are like, yeah, I want to jump on it too, I'm like, okay, welcome, come on down, like they say. So just send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com to book. And do keep in mind, we are booked out 3 months in advance because there's so many awesome people like Dr. Shayla here who are dropping all of this great info about wonderful things that she's doing inside and outside of clinical medicine. I want to thank you all who jumped on. Dr. Tawana, thank you, thank you, thank you. She says this was a lovely discussion. And then we have some people from LinkedIn and on Facebook. Hello, our Facebook user. I didn't get to see your name. Thank you all for jumping on. And I will see you guys next time on this wonderful Dr. Tamar Beckford show. Alrighty, take care, everyone. Bye.